Hello and welcome to another video by Rick Miracle, me, in my series Freemasonry and Satanism. It's been interesting lately, following the theme that I've been following to make videos. Some of the things going on in the world right now. I have a little Excel database that I keep track of my videos. So from 99 until 119, thought I'd show you a little snapshot of what that page looks like. And you can see some of the books, like that one there I did 7 videos. The Zionist State of Israel. And some of them I did 1, some I did 2, some I'm up to 3 videos, and some I'm up to 4. So I go back to the ones I've done 1 video, and I plan on making a second on some of them. Here's the other one, numbers 69 to 98. Just thought you might find this interesting. You can see on the middle there, 85, I've done 10 on the Morals and Dogma for the Blue Lodge Handbook. And you can see how many videos I did. The name of the book, the author. So that was 99 to 100. Here's 35 to 68. You can see how many videos I made on the different books. So it's not just moving forward with the series number. I have many situations where I got to go back even 3 years ago, and a couple of the ones I reintegrated into a series into the separate numbers when I started out. I have a few holes to fill, videos I need to make from books I read. As you can see on this one, there's a couple where number 1 hasn't been made yet. Not too many, but and there's the book that it'll be made on. So that's 1 through 34. So looking at my computer right here, I'm up to 309 videos posted on YouTube. And a portion of them are my sky spraying videos where they're spraying chemicals in the sky. And those videos are usually 10 to 20 minutes long. But all these videos are anywhere from an hour to 2 hours. So just doing the math, I think I got about 500 hours, 450, 470, going up every week, of material on YouTube. Documentaries I made on books I've read. And my New World Order media and press releases. I still need to continue that because I'm still monitoring the newspapers and alternate websites and printing out new research material and press releases and the comments that people make. I'm paying attention to what's going on in the world right now. And it's getting crazier, if that's even possible. But anyways, I do also notice that on my computer, I'm looking at it, particular videos or book reviews, videos I make on books I read, they turn off the monetization. They turn off the advertisements. They won't allow it. They say it's not advertiser friendly. But I also notice it's only certain videos on certain topics that are not advertiser friendly. So I could do videos on porn in the United States, pedophilia, witchcraft, Satanism, anything, and they'll be monetized. They'll allow advertising. But apparently, if I do anything to expose the Zionist Jewish situation in the world, it seems like those videos, and I will show that in this video, are more likely to be demonetized. So far, only once or twice have they actually have I seen my videos disappear. So I seem to only get 50 or 60 hits when I post a video right away, with a good portion of thumbs up and positive comments, but it stops there. So I feel that the powers that be are probably clicking some little button when my videos get released, and not allowing them to show up on any searches after their initial release. In other words, censoring my videos. It seems like that, and a lot of my commenters have said it seems like that. Just saying, and that this has something to do with the video I'm going to do today, because of the world events and other things that have happened. This will be series number 118, part 4. So I showed you how I do this. You can see the different part 1, part 2, part 7. Part 7 would have been on the Encyclopaedia, the Zionist State of Israel. I've got 7 2-hour videos, thereabouts, on the Encyclopaedia Judaica. So I feel when I get the information from the Encyclopaedia Judaica, I think it's fair to say that that's what they want the world to think. The people who made the Jewish encyclopedia apparently representing the Jews current in history from all over the world. I also realize that it's tainted in favor of them. It's their encyclopedia, so that's what you would expect. And not in favor of the opposition, the 92 plus countries in the last 2,000 years who have had problems with their new guest when they were fleeing another country and came to another country. This would be the Jewish people. And it doesn't specifically say good Jews or bad Jews in the Encyclopaedia Judaica. It just says Jews. I say it's not all Jews, that a lot of Jewish people have written several of the books that I've read and made videos on, trying to warn we the people from all over the world about this threat, these plans for, you can call it what you want, a new world order, new age, globalization, aristocrats ruling over the rest of us as slaves, those they don't kill, that they don't want anymore. They used World War I, World War II, French Revolution, Russian Revolution, other revolutions, 9/11, and so much more in pursuit of this goal, of this aristocratic rule by the certain peoples. And apparently it involves biblical themes, stuff in the Bible, with Nephilim beings mentioned in the Bible, giants, watchers, angels, demons, and more, which I suspect is a big smokescreen and cover-up for the aliens and inner earth beings. A new being I was introduced this week to, something called the Blue Avians, and I was watching a couple of Corey Good's videos, so I'm continuing to pursue that theme, finding out what they're saying, this raising our consciousness and using art and music to sway the minds of men and women and children. Children! Even in the cartoons, I've gone over this. Mind control. So anyways, let me start reading from the Encyclopaedia Judaica, the number 16, the last one I got in the mail, and reading the second half of the topic, Zionism, and in particular, there's quite a few pages on Zionism here, on many different countries, and I will be continuing to read more from the Encyclopaedia Judaica for, Zionism in South Africa, Zionism in Russia. Wow, I've got a lot to read. But anyways, the last video, part 3 of 118, I did Zionism in the USA, and it was only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 pages, and 2 columns equals a page in this encyclopedia. So I know where I left off, and I'm going to start reading, and I will interrupt this reading in this video with some other material that is pertinent to the conversation. And that's what I'm doing with these videos. I'm just trying to have a conversation. I don't want it to be insightful, although some of the material may be insightful. I don't want to try to convince people who watch my videos to think the way I do. I'm altering some of the ways that I think as I go along in this investigation since 2005. When I was started out the first couple years into New Age material, holistic healing, the 7 chakras, and many other things. And a couple years later, I was studying Taoism, using the how people use the pendulum, and books on shamas. So I thought I was doing the right thing. And then that led me into the conspiracy theory material, which later on, even a lot of alternate news sites, even the Main Street newspapers will now say that it's not a conspiracy. They're calling for a global order. But they said 5 years ago, 10 years ago, no, there's no conspiracy here. It's all your imagination. Now they're saying we need a global order. Even the Pope, a global currency. We need to, prepare to battle for Civil War #2 in the USA and apparently the world, where it will be the government, and who controls the government? That would be the secret societies. And as Prime Minister of Israel said, Mr. Prime Minister Sharon, don't worry about the USA. We control the USA. And Meir Panat, probably saying his name wrong, but one of the conspirators to organize all of those countries in Europe to form the European Union. That was done behind all of their backs. Even the 1960s and 1970s, when we had the hippie movement, that was intentional, planned, even said in Congress, in congressional hearings on communism and on hearings on the Jewish problem, that they would be using drugs, art, and music and all this, changing the culture of we the people. Now when I get done with this video, if people can't see that, then maybe they can't see. Because I'm going to show some material that makes it indisputable that they were planning to change our culture. And apparently to change it, to destroy it. They want to destroy Christianity. They want to discredit Jesus. They want to say Jesus didn't really exist. It was a myth. And I've gone out of my way making different kinds of videos, even with the Edgar Casey's story of Jesus, that was part 3. I'll be doing more from his books about Jesus and related issues going on in Egypt on part 3. So even in the Theophist Society books, The Secret Doctrine by Helena Blavatsky, and a lot of the Kabbalistic books, a cover for witchcraft and sorcery. That's what the people were accused of back then. That's what they were into. They mention Jesus. So all these seemingly evil books, or I should call evil, people who want to deceive the rest of us, that's evil to me, they agree that Jesus did exist. Apparently the Jews, not all Jews, reject and rejected Jesus as the Messiah 2,000 years ago. Even though, if you go check your calendar, it says 2017, which means it was 2017 years ago that Jesus was born. The whole world, portion of it, a good portion of it, from Argentina to Germany, and United States, and Canada, and Mexico, and all over the world, a lot of people use the calendar where today's date is April 15th, Saturday, 2017. So there's just a lot of undeniable proof that Jesus was born and apparently came from the spiritual realm, and apparently God is the Lord of the spirits according to the Book of Enoch material. And I'm going to continue that. Like I said, on these videos, I've got a lot of work to do part 2s here and part 3s, even on the Dead Sea Scrolls. And it's just going to keep on reinforcing this stuff. So far, what I've found. But let me read from, get started with the portion in this book on Zionism out of the Encyclopaedia Judaica, and Zionism in particular in the USA. There's a lot of pages in this book on Zionism, from Germany to Switzerland to countries all over the world. So I've got a lot to read and future videos to make. So we'll see if I can pick up where I left off. See what you think. Alright, I'm just trying to pick up here, so it may take us a moment or two to get in the groove here, to make sense from the previous paragraphs I left off in the last video. So if you have to go bring up 118 part 3 and look at the last 15 minutes, if you want to do that, if you get confused, or I think it'll probably meld together pretty quick. In addition to their efforts in the political field, American Zionists were among the most active participants in practical aid to Yishuv in its struggle after 1945. They helped with illegal immigration. They were immigrating Jewish people from all over the world into Israel even before they had a country. The UN recognized it, or the United States recognized it. And some say it was all illegally recognized. There wasn't any actual legal activity that created it, taking a small portion of the Palestinian people's land and creating a state of Israel. And what followed after that, of course, were wars and a lot of destruction and murder of Palestinian people from what I just picked up here, 1945, and it's going on today. And I suspect a lot of activities in the Middle East are covers for what's going on, in activities in the United States, like terrorist events and stuff like that. All these smoke screens, all these false flags. Alright, they helped with illegal immigration. The Baraha secret shipment of arms to the Haganah and great sums of money into Israel. The greatest number of volunteers to the Yeshuv's fighting forces which were called Metadiva, Manhal, came from the United States. However, only after World War II, under the impact of the Nazi Holocaust in Europe, so this is something they are using as a new religious tool, the Holocaust, where a lot of people were killed in World War II, but they're trying to say 6 million Jewish people were killed. But if you go back to 1920s, 30s, and 40s, there was always the newspaper articles and press releases and other issues saying that 6 million Jews were in threat, in danger in Europe prior to World War II. I've watched videos where some guy had collected all that material. And I do have the evidence of the things I talk about. So in case somebody ever says, "Rick, I can't find that, you're making it up." Well, behind me there are bookcases and computer files, and if I didn't find it and see it, I won't report it. That was what I think. I only say what I find and read, and then we try to analyze the information in my mind, and I'm sure that's what other people do. They want to be fair about it. But there's nothing fair about talking about the Jewish problem that they had congressional hearings on and worldwide problems on for thousands of years. You're not supposed to talk about that, and in a lot of countries it's illegal to talk about that. And I suspect before the game is over, they'll want it to be illegal in the rest of the world, in the United States, Europe, Canada, etc. They'll say it's a hate crime, or with the passage of the Noahide laws, Resolution 104 I went over, if you don't swear allegiance to a certain deity, Lucifer maybe, but anyways, if you continue to believe in Jesus, who will be deemed a false Messiah, and try to remain a Christian, apparently there are people who say that the government has purchased 30,000 guillotines, which I have found references to on YouTube videos and alternate news websites, that they plan on this future event to decapitate a lot of people. Trying to get off the beaten path here. But this is serious business. And as we shall see in this video. So the greatest number of volunteers to the Yeshuv's fighting forces, which were called Mundidiva, came from the United States. That's important. A lot of people in the United States don't know that they have been and are being played for fools. However, only after World War II, under the impact of the Nazi Holocaust in Europe and later the establishment of the State of Israel, did Zionism become accepted by the bulk of the Jewish community in America. Now again, I keep saying it's not all Jews, but in the Encyclopaedia Judaica right here, it clearly says on page 1144, after World War II and the Holocaust claimed event in Europe and later the establishment of the State of Israel, did Zionism become accepted by the bulk of the Jewish community in America. So this is the Encyclopaedia Judaica, so I suppose that's what they want people who read the Encyclopaedia Judaica to believe. And I suspect that these encyclopedias were intended for the Jewish audience, not for other people, Christians, to look at and see what it said about Jesus in particular. And I did make that video. You can go look these up on my little cheat sheet here. That would have been series number 107. If you doubt it, I read from one of the Encyclopaedia Judaicas when I looked up the word Jesus. Opposition to Zionism from the very beginning. Zionism had encountered great opposition, especially from Reformed Judaism. Among the staunchest, most influential opponents were rabbis Emil Hirsch, Hirish, Kaufman, Kohler, other prominent Reform rabbis, however, such as Gustav, Jacob, Raisin, Bernard, Fiesenthal, Maximilian, Heller, supported the movement. And the way I understand it, the Reformed movement are the ones in opposition to the Ten Commandments and God. It is the Orthodox, the real Jews, who are in opposition to the Zionism, ruling the world from Mount Zion or Israel, Tel Aviv, and Jerusalem. So yeah, good God-believing Jews would be against certain peoples wanting to rule the world. And if you want to call a lot of people that are not even Jewish, Khazarians from Khazar, who converted to Judaism 1,000 years ago, plus or minus, and a lot of other people who are in cahoots with these secret societies, into Kabbalistic and witchcraft and sorcery activities, basically for selfish reasons, gaining great wealth and perverted abuse of other peoples all over the world. And we've seen this in the news, alarmingly. Came out during the Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump presidential election about Pizzagate. And this stuff is still coming out. And much more. A lot of things that Donald Trump said that he was going to do, drain the swamp. It does not seem that that's what he's doing. His actual actions are a continuation of the previous presidents, and it seems an even acceleration, like he's the guy that's come in there to mop up Syria, as they've even said, bombed Syria, and apparently the hugest bomb of all was dropped on, excepting a nuclear bomb, but a huge bomb was dropped on Afghanistan, apparently to smoke out some Arabs who were in some caves. But then I'm also reminded, interestingly enough, that there were reports several years ago, geology reports, about the vast amounts of mineral resources in those mountains in Afghanistan. And I thought, man alive, that would save a lot of bulldozer work and mining. If somebody dropped a gigantic bomb on those mountains, it would free up all those minerals. And who knows what kind of minerals, everything from gold to silver to emeralds and other natural resources, uranium, who knows? But a big bomb would do a huge amount of work towards blowing up the mountains. We already know, like in Iraq and the rest of the Middle East, there's been intensive archaeological research going on and confiscation of from the museums in Iraq of artifacts. And then, of course, we hear about the stuff going on in Antarctica and the Anunnaki aliens, the Sumerian scrolls, and all this other stuff. So all this seems to be leading to some event or prophesized purpose of biblical proportions. I realize those are crazy words. All right, here, let me move on. In 1907, Professors Max Margolis, Henry Malter, Max Schlesinger, all strong sympathizers with Zionism, resigned from the Hebrew Union College faculty, while the Zionists charged that they were forced to resign by the college's anti-Zionist President Kohler. Among the younger generations, Stephen Wise, Judah Magnus, and Abba Silver were notable exceptions to the anti-Zionism of the Reformed Rabbinites. The main body of the Central Conference of American Rabbis was anti-Zionist and delivered pronouncements against Zionism until 1920. Now listen what's in the Encyclopaedia Judaica on this next sentence. After the Balfour Agreement, the Balfour Declaration, that's what it says here, in 1917, and the San Remo decision on Palestine, 1920. So I keep talking about the Balfour Declaration. The Balfour Declaration stated that the UK, United Kingdom, England, would assist, approve, work towards, I'm paraphrasing, annexing some of the Palestinians' land for the creation of the State of Israel if the worldwide Jewish banksters, the Illuminati, and a lot of elite Jewish people who wanted the State of Israel to be created would supply money to turn the tide in the war that the UK was losing with Germany. And another part of that agreement was to get the United States into World War I. And they did that because they controlled Woodrow Wilson, President Woodrow Wilson. So it says right here, the Balfour Declaration. So anybody who says it's not true, it's in the Encyclopaedia Judaica. Alright, the Reform movement adopted, although unofficially, a position of non-Zionism, which allowed cooperation with Zionists and philanthropic enterprises. In 1935, they revised their collective negative stand on Zionism in favor of individual choice. So all this is propaganda meant to deceive and curry favor for certain peoples who were opposed to this. And further conciliation occurred after the Columbus platform. So I've got a lot of work to look up to see what some of this stuff means. In 1937. A small minority group, however, continued with its opposition to Zionism. In November 1942, the American Council for Judaism was formed, composed of Reform rabbis. So these Reformed rabbis who were supposedly opposed to Zionism are now forming in 1942 the American Council for Judaism. Influential lay leaders such as Lessing Rosenwald and Rabbi Elmer Berger as its head. The Central Conference of American Rabbis tried to halt this split within its ranks, but to no avail. Within the Reform movement as a whole tended to be pro-Zionism. The council continued its anti-Zionist activity, and upon the establishment of the State of Israel, it stated, here we go, the State of Israel is not the state or homeland of the Jewish people. To Americans of Jewish faith, it is a foreign state. Our single exclusive national identity is to the United States. Jewish Orthodox circles were divided nearly from the beginning of the Zionist issue, while the Zionist Marachi and the Haopol Hilmarachi found many adherents among the East European Jews. Guttite Israel, a smaller but articulate group, was anti-Zionism out of the conviction that Zionism was secularist and incompatible with Orthodox Jewry. Okay, that's what I said earlier, that it was incompatible with biblical Bible-believing Jews, Orthodox Jewry. Only during World War II did these groups abandon their anti-Zionism, and in 1945, with some internal opposition, Guttite Israel declared its willingness to cooperate with the Zionists. So there was an intense desire to have the Palestinians' land for the creation of the State of Israel. The Balfour Agreement was reached during World War I. But not surprisingly, after World War I, the people from the UK, United Kingdom, London. And United Kingdom means they controlled a lot of resources all over the world. They didn't want to continue their betrayal to the Arab peoples all over the Middle East. So they wouldn't follow through on their commitment, the Balfour Declaration, to annex the Palestinians' land. Hence, they had to have World War II. So a lot of this stuff was done with premeditated intent, and it's in the books I've gone over that were written way before World War II and World War I, even Albert Pike in 1880, and many other books I've gone over, and some more books that I have. This biblical prophecy and plan for these people to become the controllers of the world, much like a Hunger Games movie and a lot of other bizarre movies and TV shows we see. This was going on for a long time. So what happened during World War II, it was just a big tool, and it was used to continue the ends for these people for a new age and a new world order. If I could spit all that out. All right. So World War II, even the people who were anti-Zionist apparently flip-flopped and said, okay, you know, the propaganda worked, all the Jews were freaking out, they killed 6 million Jews in Germany, in gas chambers. Scientists have been out there and made samples on the walls of the gas chambers and have said, no, that's not what happened here, there would be residue on the walls. And so there is a big battle. I've gone over books that talk about that. So this Holocaust thing was all part of a tool to become part of the world, the New World religion. That I've read in this book when I started the other video. I'm going to go back and read it now to page 1142. I underlined this. It was so important to me when I discovered it. At the beginning of this Zionism in the United States essay in the Encyclopaedia Judaica. Such attempts show a misunderstanding of Israel's mission which, from the narrow political and national field, has been expanded to the promotion among the whole human race of the broad and universalistic religion first proclaimed by the Jewish prophets. That's what it says here. So if anybody wants to say, no, the Jews don't want to rule the world and create one universal religion, well, it says it in the Encyclopaedia Judaica, 1973 edition. I suppose they're pretty current in this. All right, moving on. Got to find where I left off here. Agate Israel declared its willingness to cooperate with the Zionists. So during World War II, there were the people who were holding out on this New World Order. I guess could see the success these Illuminati Zionist secret society peoples were doing. And I rather doubt a lot of these Jewish people were our original DNA Hebrews, the biblical ones. A lot of them are Khazarians. If you look at pictures of them, they certainly don't look like brown people or black people, Middle Eastern people. They look like very white people from the Russian area, Poland area, Ukraine area, Khazarians. People involved in Pizzagate and all this other perverted activities, child trafficking, human sacrifice, a lot of them look like very white people, part of these secret societies. And back then, when Henry Ford wrote his books, the Jewish people, the Yiddish Jews, the ones they were immigrating into the USA as part of a plan, millions of them, they were they created the porn industry and Hollywood and controlled the theaters. They were aggressive in these directions. Seems like it's part of the communist movement and plans to take over our culture, the world's cultures. Those are facts, as we shall see. On the fringe of orthodoxy, extremist opposition to Zionism was continued by the Samat Rebbe Joel Tietenbaum, who condemned the Zionists for trying to hasten, here we go again with this biblical stuff, the redemption by establishing a heterarchical state, the heterics. So they're hastening the redemption. So the Jews, the religious ones anyways, are looking for redemption. A lot of Jews in the United States are completely oblivious to this stuff, I think. Because I've got Jewish friends, and I know the Jewish musicians, business people, and they get offended if somebody says there's something bad about Jews. I don't blame them, but they don't know what's going on. They're not reading this book and thinking. Or are they? I don't know. I know what I'm reading, and I know what I see, what's going on in the world today, and who controls President Donald Trump. His son-in-law has a huge position, and apparently some of these alternate websites say that he's seriously pro-Israel, and he's holds the ear to President Donald Trump. He's married to President Donald Trump's daughter, I guess his most favorite daughter. Some bizarre things these alternate news sites talk about. I listen. All right. Within the lay leadership of American Jewry, Zionism at first found its strongest opponent in the American Jewish Committee, whose leadership included at various times, among others, Meyer Salzberger, Cyrus Adler, Ivan Lehman, Louis Marshall, Jacob Felix, Warburg, Oscar, Strauss, Cyrus, Salzenberger, Julius, Rosenberg, all wealthy, of German background, and non- or anti-Zionist. After the Balfour Declaration, however, the committee tactically recognized the ZOA, Zionism of the world here, as the representative of those Jews directly concerned with the welfare of Palestine. Although within the American context of the AJC, which was an unelected elite, opposed the Congress movement during World War I, which was advanced by Zionism and based on mass support. During 1920s, the leaders of the AJC were approached by Weizmann in order to establish the enlarged Jewish agency. Zionist diaspora nationalism, so the diaspora was where Jews were exiled from the Middle East to Jerusalem to all over the world, and they still maintained, as if they had a country, an Israeli identity for thousands of years. This is serious business, I keep saying. This is no small thing. This is what seems behind everything we're seeing today. All the problems of the world. This thing's going to come to a head. However, when the AJC saw as a threat to their position and patriotism, remained an issue of contention between them. Okay, I'll underline some stuff here. Let's see why. Thus, opposition to the Zionists continued in various forms until January 1948, when Judge Prosacker, under the pressure of the pro-Zionist Jewish consensus in the United States, declared the committee's acceptance of the Jewish state recommended by the United Nations Special Committee on Palestine, the UNSCOP. However, the AJC remained apprehensive around the status of American Jews in the light of the Jewish state. It was willing to support Israel under remaining independent of direct Israel it was willing to support Israel while remaining independent of direct Israel interference in its affairs. In 1950, David Ben-Gurion, as Prime Minister of Israel, exchanged letters on the subject with Jacob Blunstein, President of the AJC. Ben-Gurion stated that the Israeli represented only its own citizens and had no claim to speak in the name of the Jews in the diaspora. Like I said, this encyclopedia is tainted because I completely am 100% aware of the influence that the leadership of the Jewish people worldwide have and had over the other Jews, and they went way out of their way not to have Jews start assimilating with the rest of us. This is common knowledge. The Jews of the United States as a community and as individuals owed political loyalty only to the United States. So I suppose this is written for consumption for people to believe this. And the Jews in Israel had no intention of interfering in the affairs of Jewish communities abroad. And again, I've read books, material, that shows that intentional anti-Semitism was created to coerce and force happy Jews, wherever they were, Germany, United States, etc., to leave, Argentina being another example, and go to Israel, because Jews worldwide, generally speaking, wanted no part of this. But if you created anti-Semitism, of course, you would motivate people out of fear to leave. The effect of these letters was in cooperation with the AJC with Israel within defined areas of agreement. There were congresses, there were big organizations, and they had a huge plan. And it's still under play right now. Mass support and fundraising. Dedicated supporters of the Zionist movement came from the ranks of conservative Judaism. Solomon Secher and his faculty at the Jewish Theological Seminary supported Zionism despite the objection of the reform-oriented board of directors of the seminary. The meetings of the Rabbinical Assembly of America were constantly characterized by expressions of sympathy for Zionism. The Reconstructionist movement under the leadership of Rabbi Mordecai Kaplan also was always pro-Zionist. It viewed its endeavor in Palestine as a means to achieve a renaissance in Jewish life in America as well, guided by Rabbi Kaplan's concept of a Jewish peoplehood here. Reconstructionist rabbis worked within the Zionist movement in order to achieve their twofold aim. From the 1930s on, the ZOA, Zionist World Organization, devoted more and more attention to fundraising, mainly in the United Palestine Appeal. There was considerable rivalry between the non-Zionist overseas agencies, especially in the American Jewish Joint Distribution Committee, for the allocation of funds raised in local communities. In 1939 to 1940, the UPA and the JDC combined into the United Jewish Appeal, the UJA. The frequent consequences of such cooperation was a lack of emphasis on Zionist ideology in Zionist circles. The situation changed from the 1940s when fundraising and political ideology became indistinguishable. So fundraising and political ideology became indistinguishable. A lot of money went over there from the United States. And look what they're doing today. World War III seems looming. Nuking countries. It would never have happened. Nuking countries or cities all over the world bring about World War III and this new age and new world order, if none of this stuff in the past was allowed to happen, but they controlled the United States in 1913, December 21st, when all the congressmen and representatives and people in Washington, D.C. were on Christmas vacation. They created the Federal Reserve, which wasn't federal, and they took over the United States money control, supply, and control in 1913. Alright, I said I was going to talk about a couple other things in this video that seemed appropriate to this conversation. One of the things I want to talk about is if you buy something from TextMar's website, which I do once in a while, so I can continue to get these prophecy newsletters. Anyways, I purchased this book and I made a video on it called The Holy Serpent of the Jews. You can see it was series 91, so I made part 1. I have to make part 2. So what I said in the beginning of this video, that my YouTube videos, certain videos, they don't allow monetization. You can look at my computer right now, and the green emblem around the $ is taken away. So let's take a look at that for 1 second. You can see the video, second one down, the green is not around the $, and this would have been the video 118 part 3, and this video I'm making right now is 118 part 4. So they demonetized the video on the Encyclopaedia Judaica in the United States. Another video that YouTube demonetized was 1110, as you can see there on the top. The Khazarian Jews, the 13th tribe. And here you can see book review 90 part 1, Holocaust Dogma of Judaism. They demonetized that one also. And here you can see book review 106 part 2, the Encyclopaedia Judaica on anti-Semitism in the United States is demonetized also. Here you can see the fourth one down is demonetized, and that would be the Bolsh, which means German, Bolshevik Jews, and Nestor Webster. Book review I made, and that would be 42 part 2. So as you can see, certain videos of mine, only when they deal with the Jewish people, seem to be advertiser unfriendly. So the emails I get from YouTube say. And like I think the one on 91, the Holy Serpent of the Jews, that was demonetized also. There's a point to this conversation. So I got this letter from Tex Mars. When he published this book, apparently Amazon on the internet banned this book. And you can get books on witchcraft, you can get books on pornographic material on Amazon, and many other things. So it says here in this letter I'm going to read. But you can't get this book. So I said, well, geez, Tex Mars, the author of this book, that I made a video on, part 1. I'm going to make part 2. I said, but they've been doing that to my videos. They haven't, I guess I'm not too popular, which seems to be a good thing, because then they would probably be banning my videos altogether, which seems like it's coming. You can't speak the truth about what's going on. And apparently the owner of Amazon is also the owner of the Washington Post, a very wealthy Jewish man. So let me read Tex Marr's letter and this thing he sent to me. Let you decide. Amazon bans Tex Marr's book for content. Holy Serpent of the Jews. That's the book I've read, half of it. Made one video. I got to read the second half and make another video. Holy Serpent of the Jews reveals too much truth. Want to read a book about ghoulish sex perversions? This is Tex Marr's letter. Maybe something about child torture, cannibalism, witchcraft, or some blood fetish. Amazon.com, the world's largest bookseller, owned by the wealthy Jewish man who also owns the Washington Post, which seems to have a lot of fake news in it, according to a lot of people I listen to on different YouTube videos. The world's largest bookseller has it for you. So you can get pretty much anything on Amazon.com in these books. Amazon has about 7 million books, volumes covering the waterfront of sex crimes, incest, bestiality, and occult deviances. Whatever evil or mind-bending hedonistic pleasure you're into, Amazon's got just the book for you. For example, discover the depths of Satanism by ordering Anton LaVey's monstrous The Satanic Bible. So you can study to be a witch by getting books off of Amazon and many other book sites all over the world, bookstores. It's on Amazon's bestseller list. That one book alone has warped the lives of tens of thousands of young readers prone to its heinous lies. The Satanic Bible recommends the human sacrifice of innocent children. I've been saying this stuff. This is their ultimate religious experience, practice, is sacrificing a human. I'm Christian. Christmas, Easter are important holidays for me. But I guess if you're a witch and your most important religious ceremony would be sacrificing a human, I guess if you aspired to be a world-leading witch, you would do it. Just saying, this stuff does exist. The Satanic Bible recommends the human sacrifice of innocent children. When I talk about this to people, they put their hands over their ears or they run away. People don't want to acknowledge this stuff. They go, just think good thoughts. Everything's going to be okay. Tell it to the children that get abducted for these sacrificial rituals. So if you're into that, help yourself. Order the infamous book through Amazon.com. And if it's dirty politics and scummy social ideology you're into, you'll want to investigate some of Amazon's political titles, like the Communist Manifesto by Karl Marx, or the many titles written by American haters and socialist ideologues, such books as Saul Alinsky and Leon Trotsky. Communism is alive. It's part of this whole New Age and New World Order. But with all these evil titles that are for sale, including perverted volumes by Aleister Crowley, the British Satanist who boasted of being 666, I've talked a lot about this evil guy, and the most wickedest man on the planet, and the scourge of bondage and sadism, the Marks of Sade, there's only one title that America now refuses to handle and sell. I wonder what book that would be. That would be my book, The Holy Serpent of the Jews. And we noticed on my YouTube videos that they demonetize mine. I don't seem to get, I get 50 hits, 60 when I first release a video, but then it all shuts down. And everybody, I don't get any negative thumbs down. I get mostly thumbs up and great comments, rarely a negative comment. So I'm just scratching my head. How can that be that they become quite popular when I got 307 videos, and they never make it past 50. Some of them might make it to 161 or 98, but it's seemingly like that they're, and I use meta tags, I put keywords in there. So it just seems to me, and I see that they demonetize some of my videos. So it does seem that somebody is trying to prevent the information getting out, prevent the truth from getting out. And that's why I do book reviews, because I'm reading a book by world famous authors. And I'm reading directly from it. I'm not trying to say it's me. I can say what I think when I read it. I think I'm a rational, intelligent human being. But I like to have some supporting material when I make these videos. That's where I got the idea to do book reviews. And then I get this newsletter, and he talks about a lot of things that continue to support what many of the books that I've read and made videos on say. So we all need to wake up. So the hideous books by Levay and Crowley, not to mention the graphic photo book Sex by Madonna, and a new book by Leanne Durham, in which she describes how she once sexually abused her little sister. She once sexually abused her little sister. So you can get that book on Amazon.com. So these books apparently meet Amazon's guidelines. Remember, this is owned by the famous Jewish man who owns the Washington Post. I think it'll say the name here somewhere. Next, please consider Holy Serpent of the Jews has no graphic sex. The book contains no profanity, none whatsoever. What it does, however, is quote actual Jewish rabbis, modern and ancient. Amazon owner, here's his name, Mr. Jeff Bezos, B-E-Z-O-S, himself a Jew, is apparently incensed by my quoting from these famous rabbis. So I'm quoting from the Judaica Encyclopedia and many other books, and those particular videos, many of them, seem to be demonetized. I guess I should be thankful that they haven't actually shut down my account or removed my videos. That might set the stage for a whole new activity on my part, is maybe going public and doing public speaking, saying that YouTube shut down my material. So, you know, I'm thankful to just stay a little guy. Maybe I'm not a big threat to the elites who plan on purging people from the world who they deem as a threat. This is scary stuff. So there's a picture here of Mr. Jeff Bezos, owner of Amazon, is a billionaire who owns both the global company and the disreputable newspaper, the Washington Post. I just thought I got this letter in the mail. I said, whoa. There is evidence that apparently they're trying to stop this truth that I'm reading about from getting out. Alright, the Babylonian Talmud. I've been reading about some of that stuff in those books. It quotes from the Jewish Kabbalah. I've been reading about that, the Kabbalah of the Encyclopaedia Judaica. Let me see my list here. I did 109 on 1666 Messiah Sabbatai Zivi. By the way, when I went and looked that up, it was demonetized. And I think one of my books on H.B. Blavatsky, the Theophist Society, was demonetized. Stranger, I'm looking for my series on the Kabbalah I did in the encyclopedia. Guess I'll have to look that up. So anyways, finishing this letter. Lies preferred over truth. This is by Tex Mars, the letter I got in the mail, this little pamphlet. You see, I, as author, am not a Jew, but I am a religious authority. That would be Tex Mars. And a world-famous expert on religious cult known as Judaism. What I witness in the Holy Serpent of the Jews, so all he does in this book is quote from Jewish religious books. Books that they did not want translated into English for many years. But as we all know, the world is, with the internet and all these other technologies, a lot of that material did get translated into English, and it's available for anybody if you want to go get it, like me getting the Encyclopaedia Judaica and going over it. So I'll just finish with this Tex Mars newsletter. I think I made my point. Some of my videos are being demonetized. And Tex Mars says Amazon won't allow this to be sold when they're also selling some seriously perverted books on Amazon. Alright, let's see if I can say this. So, Holy Serpent of the Jews is being suppressed by the world's largest bookseller. To me, this is a badge of honor. What will I do about this travesty in which a book that is honest and authoritative, quoting from the religious books of the Jewish people, like the Kabbalah, videos I've been making on blood libels and other issues, Jesus, so they don't want the truth out, it seems. And like the politically incorrect news clips that abruptly went down, George Orwell's memory hole in 1984, we will continue to offer this book and leave the sales up to our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. I just thought I would throw that in there as I continue to read about Zionism in the United States. You know, these people who want to be the aristocrats of the world. And let's not forget, of course, I like to do picture shows. So let's look at a couple pictures. Take another break. All right. We talk about the banksters and creating the Federal Reserve in 1913 in the United States on Christmas holiday. And behind that was the people who owned the Bank of Germany and several other banks in Europe. That would have been the House of Rothschilds. So this picture just tells a story. The Illuminati and the House of Rothschilds. So people can go look this stuff up. There's the family crest, or some design there. And the top it says, the Illuminati and the House of Rothschilds. This was 2005. The Illuminati was a name used by a German sect that existed in the 15th century, so the 1400s. Wow, this goes back. They practiced the occult and proclaimed to possess the light that Lucifer retained when he became Satan. Look this stuff up. Have your notebook handy, take some notes, go look it up. And of course, some more occult stuff in the Morals and Dogma, the Freemasonic book. Just has some interesting pictures here. This would have been the 17th degree, the night of the East and the West. Does that look occultic to you? What does it mean? George Bush visiting the Wailing Wall, the King Solomon's Temple in Jerusalem. This is a man who was in the Skull and Bones, another occultic organization, to say the least, if you know about some of the things they do in the Skull and Bones. If you don't, there are some very interesting videos on YouTube. Anyways, people made these pictures. I just found them on the Yahoo image site. when I looked up Zionism and some other topics related to it. But apparently this octopus, these people behind the New Age and the New World Order, plan on taking over the whole world. And I keep talking about that they plan on having a greater Israel. So this is one of the maps you can find on Greater Israel Yahoo image site. You can see it encompasses a good portion of Iraq, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, and of course Syria. On the top there, that green, dark green is all Syria. Now you know why they need to take down Assad. And President Donald Trump ordered the bombing of Syria recently, and another huge bombing in Afghanistan. And I talked about all the mineral wealth in those mountains. And I thought, man, that would explain why they would drop that huge bomb. Now you got all this loose debris and some bulldozers, and you could probably find. Here's another, believe it or not, map of showing how much territory the snake is going to take in the area. Another picture of the Wailing Wall in Israel. So these people go up to the wall and go like this, repeating some prayer. What are they praying for? Peace and harmony throughout the world? So they got all these renditions they want to rebuild. I did talk about Henry Ford and the Dearborn Independent. Please go look it up. It's important. I'm trying to get my light right on this camera. So just different pictures I've got about the Zionism controlling the capital in the United States with these different organizations. See the letters on the octopus legs there? The Anti-Defamation League, the AI PAC, the political action committees that are Jewish, B'nai B'rith, they control our people in Congress. They plan on a huge Israel. They have nuclear weapons. They started out where my finger is with just a little bit of land back in 1947 when the UN apparently approved those little blue spots there, right here. That was Israel. Then, of course, in the 1946 war, they took over more of the Palestinians' land. And here we are today. You think there was a plan? We've been reading in my books, the Encyclopaedia Judaica, and so much more. Yes, there was a plan. What people really don't understand, and not all people, is that the Zionist conspiracy is real. A lot of crazy stuff has happened to bring this about. And it doesn't look like it's going to stop. They're militarizing the police all over the world like SWAT teams, even here in America. A lot of dead bodies you see there. It's not going to stop. They control a lot of our politicians. These are, I didn't make these pictures up. I just go on Zionism Images, Yahoo image site, and it has a link. There are a lot of Jews fighting Zionism, as we've been reading. End of Zionism equals peace. So the God-believing Jews, this guy, want to stop what is about to happen. What is happening? This is the plan. Stuff goes back 100 years, or all kinds of old books. Nothing new here. They did 9/11. I don't make these pictures. You go on the Yahoo image site, put in Zionism. You'll see these pictures. You can click the link, and the author will. You can see the website. Yep, they've taken out Iran, Iraq, They plan on doing Iran next. They're doing Syria. Little notches in their guns, so to speak. Behold the international Jew. This is what Henry Ford talked about. Zion. They financed Hitler. They had a Balfour Agreement. A lot of good Jews are trying to fight the bad Jews. Protocols of Zion, even in many different languages, even though people want to say they're fake. What's interesting about the Protocols of Zion, we'll be going over those again in the future. But if it's fake, how come the things that it says they were going to do has been done? Here's one of those Jewish candle things here. Colonize, terrorize, nationalize, militarize, radicalize, intimidate, and censor. Some more Jews fighting Zionism. Zionism causes global anti-Semitism. These Jews are telling you. Zionists have no right to rule over any part of the Holy Land. Remember, a lot of them are Khazarians, and they're into the secret societies, the Kabbalah, witchcraft and sorcery. That would be the Zionists. They control the banking system, Wall Street. And they hawk for war. And with new President Donald Trump, who said he was going to drain the swamp and stop the Middle East wars, a lot of people on the talk shows that I listen to say that it doesn't seem like that's what he's doing. So there you have it. Some pictures. Zionism. People, the Jews who wrote the protocols. So you can go look these pictures up and find out about the protocols. Look up these men's names. So the solution would be a peaceful dismantling of the state of Israel. I guess we can agree that's not going to happen. It seems like it's really picking up. Israel wants peace. Rest in peace, Palestinians. Israel doesn't need your sympathy. Israel needs you. And we know what Washington, D.C. is controlled by these people. And they're heading for a cliff. A lot of people are saying, a lot of wealthy people, people with the means too, are leaving the big cities right now. This is 2017, April. Think about that. Smart people. I'm seeing the things behind me. I like to talk about stuff. The Hopi dolls right there and the Hopi rattle I got when I went to the Hopi reservation. This is a Mayan mask when I went down to Mexico. My little surfer dude. I used to surf in Cocoa Beach, and the map there is North Carolina. This big chart here, oops, is my research on UFO and aliens. We've got some exciting things to talk about that. This painting here, I should say canvas, the Mexican artist just took a marker, an ink marker, and drew all that picture. Then he colored it in with colored markers, only in minutes. It was fascinating. A lot of talented people in the world. So, and they don't have this guy anymore, but we got somebody else doing the same thing for Israel, the little symbol on the bottom there, who controls, apparently, the United Nations. Controls the world. And a lot of people would like the Zionism thing to go away. Although it hardly looks like it. This is probably going to continue. Probably even come to the United States. A lot of people think they can fight this. But I guess you can't fight the technologies that they have today. These microwave weapons and spraying the sky with chemicals. They could put anything they want to in there. Probably give the plague to a whole city anytime they want, if pushed against the wall. They don't want to give up. They even have some of our ministers and church leaders joining the Zionist movement. You can look up all these particular people who are in government, famous people, advising our presidents and controlling the banking system. Even the owner of the Washington Post, Amazon.com. And like I said, a lot of Jews reject Zionism. And they do want a new world order. And like I said before, you can go on Yahoo image site, look up Zionism, see these pictures, click the link, read for yourself and decide. Winston Churchill, Woodrow Wilson, Roosevelt, all these people who were put in as presidents were working for these people, these secret societies. We're Freemasons. We're members of the Council of Foreign Relations, Trilateral Commission, Bilderbergers, Bohemian Grove. So we look at some pictures there. Well, let me try reading from the Encyclopaedia Judaica and end this conversation, and hopefully I've shared some interesting, important news. All right, here we go. Giving American Jewry, Jewish people, a direct say and responsibility in administrating the funds in Israel. Aid to Israel by Jews in the U.S. Was channeled through the UJA and other overseas agencies through the Israel Bond Organization. So they were even selling bonds, like USA Savings bonds, etc. In times of crisis for Israel, the sums collected reached unprecedented proportions, as evidenced at the time of the Six-Day War. That's when Palestine lost a lot of its land. In 1966, the sale of Israeli bonds totaled $11 billion. In 1967, $175 billion. In 1970-71, in the face of the threats to the Israeli security, the goal was the largest ever, $1 trillion. In addition to fundraising, private investment was fostered by bodies such as the Palestine Economic Corporation. American contributors and investors were not only declared Zionist, you just saw the pictures, but Jews who felt a sense of identification with the Jewish people. As a consequence, American Jewish philanthropy shifted its main priority from support of American Jewish causes to the support of Israel, and the distinction between philanthropic humanization and political Zionism lost its practical significance. Aliyah in the youth movement. Aliyah is where they are recruiting Jews from all over the world to move to Israel. Some people with serious education, like a doctor, you could get $60,000 to move to Israel. And there's some places where the people wouldn't move. They caused anti-Semitism, economic turmoil for whole communities. Had nothing to do with the people who lived in particular states and countries throughout the world. And they blamed it on the Jews, so the locals would hate the Jews. And then the Jews would get on a plane or a bus or a train or whatever and go to Israel. It's all intentional. Reading page 1147, Encyclopaedia Judaica, 1973. Aside from the increase in funds, there was also evidence of greater American immigration to Israel, the ultimate expression of commitment to Zionism. So the ultimate expression of being a Jew was to become part of this. In the first 3.5 years of the state's existence, May 1948 to December 1951, out of a total of 684,201 immigrants to Israel, only 1,909 were Americans. Until 1961, immigration from the United States was less than 1.1% of the total number of immigrants. Between 1960 and 1967, immigration to Israel from the U.S. was 2,000 per year. Immediately after the Six-Day War in 1966, the figure rose to 5,000 a year. You see, all this is planned. So they had to keep taking the Palestinians' land. They were shipping new people, Jews, from all over the world into Israel. They needed the land. Anybody doubt that? And they plan on this world aristocracy where they rule and everybody else becomes slaves like Hunger Game movie. Anybody doubt that? A lot of people I talk to these days say, clearly, Rick, it does look like something really strange is happening to the world. After 1967, the grassroots immigration movement started independent of the Jewish agency. So a grass movement also started, which in 1968 formed the Association of Americans and Canadians for Aliyah. So now you got this thing in 67 where Jewish people from Canada and America have joining Aliyah, selling all their assets and moving to Israel. Makes you wonder why they moved all the jobs from America into China. These people moved their manufacturing and production facilities from America to China. They only cared about making money. And then they were selling some quality products to we, the people in the United States, that were not quality products. Lead paint on some of the toys and stuff that's been in the news. Just saying, it's not about quality, it's just about money for these people. And we're all finding that out. The resolutions of the 27th Zionist Congress, Jerusalem, 1968, stated that all necessary help be extended to this and all other organizations seriously contemplating immigration. Immigration in 1970 and 71. Remember, this was the hippie movement in the United States. In Europe, they called festivals. This was all intentional. Was approximately 700,000 annually. The Zionist movement in America financially assisted established educational institutions and youth movements, Young Judea, B'nai Akiva summer camps, and also organized tours to Israel. In the 1950s and 60s, membership in these movements declined mostly as a result of the growing Jewish affiliation to the various religious movements and their youth groups. So I got another document, a book I got in the mail I want to look at in this video, furthering my point here. So I say, the secret societies, Freemasonic lodges, Rosicrucians, Knights of Malta, Knights of Columbus, Zionist organizations, communist, all these banksters, these elitists, these people who are trying to take over the world. I think they've taken it over. But it's all planned. And I continue to do my research, watch other people's videos, and I get suggestions or people talk about this or that. And I order the books, as we know. I got this book in the mail. Unbelievable. Remember, these people deceived the whole world to bring about World War I and World War II. It looks like whatever President Donald Trump says and the people in Washington, it's all orchestrated by the puppet masters. Some nuclear explosion in some harbor, some city. Something will happen. And the rest of us will become entangled in this web of martial law and control, a fabricated war between the U.S. and Russia, the U.S. and Iran, whatever, Korea, whatever they have to do. What are people going to do? This book I got in the mail. The Marxist Minstrels, a handbook of communist subversion of music. I'm saying the hippie movement, the CIA involved in drugs, LSD, during the 1960s, 1970s, all this was intentional to corrupt and destroy a whole generation of young people in the United States. There were a lot of smart people back then. I was one of them. You know. And you know, it takes a lot to wake up. It took me a trip to Costa Rica and seeing that there was a lot of prostitution and child sex, people flying in from all over the world, a controlled people, cops running around the streets with billy clubs. And the people at the tiki bar told me things going on all around the world in 2005. I flew back to Florida and got on my computer and said, oh my God, I got angry. I was living in my own world. I had a sailboat, a house by the beach, a condo in Orlando, land in Maine, a motorcycle, everything. A growing man would want. A good time, a swimming pool. But I found out something was going on. The world was heading this way. And I found out it's intentional. So I got this book. A handbook of communist music, subversion of music. David Noble. Back then, I guess it cost $2. You're not going to believe the date here. I checked out when this book was published. January 1974. So there were people who were awake back then. Who knows? Like I said, they had congressional hearings in 1920s. Henry Ford wrote his books, the Dearborn Independent articles. He didn't create the books. People created the books after that, but he had published those articles in his Dearborn newspaper. Here's a famous automaker. He didn't need to get involved in this. But apparently he had a heart. He believed in God. And he could see what was happening. He saw, or he writes about, the Yiddish Jews sitting in the movie theaters singing in Yiddish that we Americans in New York City couldn't understand, in Chicago, wherever. But they were mocking the people. They came here, they were having camps built as education facilities to immigrate hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of Yiddish Jews from the Ukraine, Russia area. I've gone over this in previous books and material. Teach them how to speak some English, how to handle themselves in the United States. They came here predominantly. They weren't allowing back then in the 1918s, 1920s, anybody else to immigrate. Just these Yiddish Jews, predominantly. And they were coming into the cities, and they acted like they owned the place. They were obnoxious towards the rest of us. And they were probably financed and put in positions. And a wave of them came across the United States, taking over businesses, and sometimes very barbarically or ruthlessly. If you wouldn't sell out to them, you might wind up dead, according to my research. They wanted all the liquor labels. We're going to go over that. And then once they took over a quality whiskey business in Tennessee, they would move the production to Chicago, maybe, and have 1/10 of the quality whiskey in the bottle and 9/10 of some serious poison toxin using the same label of the whiskey. Famous. And it was causing a lot of health issues, blindness, death. So one wonders what caused prohibition. Had this thing gone awry? With that said, I don't mean to get off the beaten path here, but I'm going to just read the preface of this book. The preface, you know, it's where somebody else writes a little synopsis about the world or whatever's in the book. Just a couple pages about this book, which I haven't read yet, which I need to read. A friend of mine already picked it up and was reading it and said to me, "Rick, you can't talk about that. People love their music. You're going to get people mad at you. Leave it alone." Well, let's see what this preface says. The Marxist Minstrels, a handbook on communist subversion of music. I told you these people took over the music industries. They used them for evil purpose, including the movie industry, the educational industry, the medical industry. They put fluoride in our water. The aviation, the government, the military, they're spraying chemicals in our sky. Jade Helm 15, they were having military exercises all over the United States with computer algorithms that are going to make decisions on who to purge, who they deem via some kind of meta tag, who's a threat to this new regime of this world aristocracy, of this Hunger Games movie type world. Computers will be making decisions where they dispatch a squad to come execute a whole family. They won't be able to trust humans to make those decisions. But let me read from this. Karl Marx, in his 1884 manifesto, said, "The communists disdain to conceal their views and aims." So the communists don't like to conceal their views and aims. Following the example of their phrenological master, I'm going to look up that word, Phrenological. The communists have openly declared cultural, music, art, and literature to be their sphere of weaponry. Moshe Dieter, in the Profile of Communism, admits the communist endeavor to capture men's minds through the cultural offensive. So they're trying to make our cultural offensive decadent. They created all this craziness going on now. Even back when I was raising two boys, my grandmother had come to live with me and help me. But they had those Pokemon chips. And even when one of the boys came home from school, it had a little insert in a history book that said Jesus was a myth. Anyways, when I saw the Pokemon chips, I said, and I knew psychology. I'd take a couple psychology courses in college. And I said, in the future, kids are going to look like those Pokemon chips. And go downtown now. I was in downtown another city on a trip this last weekend. And me and my girlfriend walked into this bar, lounge, right there in the big square where all the activities and restaurants were. And this one guy was sitting in a little cubbyhole. And more rings in his noses and lips and ears and eyebrows and all this other stuff and rings on every finger. Looked like a complete Pokemon chip. It's happened. So anyways, back to this, the communists using music and art to destroy our youth back then. All right, Moshe Dieter in the Profile of Communism admits, the communists endeavored to capture men's minds through cultural offensive. And J. Edgar Hoover, the late director of the Federal Bureau of Investigation, stated that the communists, get this, and who are the communists? These were created by the Bolshevik Jews who abducted the Tsar of Russia and his family and murdered them, proceeded to murder 100 million Christians and other good people in Russia. After World War I, this was in 1917, and the murdering went on for 10 or 15 years. So just think about the United States. Whenever they kick off the actual revolution, or say that the USA people are the threat, they crash the economy, whatever. They have some kind of plague and demand everybody line up at the local hospital for a vaccine, but you are not allowed to know what they're going to pump in your arm. How many people will resist that? Back to the book. Communists, this was Edgar Hoover, the late director of the FBI. The communists have infiltrated every conceivable sphere of activity: youth groups, radio, television, and motion picture industries, church, school, educational, cultural groups, the press, nationality minority groups, and civil and political units. So this was the leader of the FBI. Need I say any more? The communists are the people who are into the cabal, who aspire through some kind of claim of socialism to be saving the world, with every intentions of destroying all the people that foolishly fall for this stuff. I mean, after President Donald Trump was elected, they had the Women's March on Washington. There were websites you could sign up on and knew where to be greeted and where you were assigned to go. And one woman was asked why she was there, and she said she didn't know. She just wanted to be part of it. People are being mind controlled or falling for this insanity. But anyways, let's go back to this book and get more evidence that it's all true. He stated elsewhere, the war between communism and the free world is not fought with bombs or other tangible weapons. It is being fought now by subversion through the medium of ideas. It is not an accident that the greatest concentration of communist workers has been found in these three fields: education, union, and entertainment. These are the areas where ideas flourish and thinking patterns are formed. Think Pokemon. Think satanic ritual shows during Super Bowl halftimes. Emmys, Grammys, Olympic openings, Lady Gaga, the grand opening for that tunnel in Switzerland, all ghoulish. People even had horns, even all naked, skin-clad material. They appeared to be naked. All grope each other on a train bed floating through the event. Crazy? In the musical arena, the radicals had to be congratulated for their successful use of music, for they have inflicted upon the American people a program persistently pursued until near perfection and completion. The communist infiltration into the subversion of American music has been nothing short of a phenomenal, and in some areas, folk music. Their control is fast approaching the saturation point. Under the able leadership of Pete Seeger, Sing Out, Folkways Records, Oak Publications, Inc., one only needs consult R. Serge Denisoff's Great Day Coming for collaborating evidence. So I suppose I need to get his book, Great Day Coming. Get it? Got it? The subverter's use of music is a refined, two-edged subversive sword, cutting deeply into our nation's will to resist the Soviet America. One cutting edge is aimed at removing the barrier between classical music and certain types of popular music by substituting perverted form, jungle noises. So in your downtown square this spring, summer, and fall, well, they have all these drums going on, and everybody there is beating to the jungle noises. Boom, 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 boom. It affects the mind. It's intentional. For standardized classical form. The other edge is more psychological than cultural and consists of the communist use of music directed at destroying the mental and emotional stability of America's youth through a scheme capable of producing mass neurosis. The father of the Bolshevik Revolution, here we go, V.I. Lenin, speaking to the Third All-Russian Congress of the Youth Communist League in October 1920. Remember, this is when they were shipping all those Yiddish, Bolshevik, Jewish people into New York. And Henry Ford bought a newspaper to try to get the word out what was going on. insisted they must rework culture, for only by doing so could they hope to build a proletarian communist culture. So you get the idea what communist culture is? It's living in a commune, controlled by the aristocrats. Think of the Hunger Games movie. And people are going to be led to believe that's going to be what's going to save them, using global warming, global cooling, climate change, biodiversity, sustainability. They're controlling the weather. They got the HARPs microwave transmitters, HARP. Go look up HAARP. It's all happening. It's all happening in real time right now. He also appreciated the findings of Ivan Prolov and his experiments regarding conditioned reflexes. We'll be going over more books on mind control. Project Montauk, MK Ultra. It's all real. In 1929, the ideological platform of the Russian Association of Proletarian Musicians was written. So the ideological platform for the Russian Association of Proletarian Musicians was written. In its class war interpretation of music, the comrades were assured that classical music was bourgeois, that would be for the wealthy people, whereas folk music was the music of the exploited and oppressed classes. The ultimate aim of the association was the extension of the proletarian communist influence to the musical masses, re-education and reorganization of these masses in order to direct their work and creative talents towards socialistic upbuilding. Socialist upbuilding. To accomplish this, new musical forms must be created and will be created by the proletariat. The proletarian music must penetrate into the innermost masses of workmen and peasants, that would be we working people, normal citizens, unite the thought and the will of these masses and raise them for further struggle and construction, organizing their class consciousness in the direction of the ultimate victory of the proletariat as builder of a communist society. I know people go, well, communism is not bad, Rick. Capitalism is evil. Think Hunger Games. The Subversive International Music Bureau, with its headquarters in Moscow, published its aims in the magazine Soviet Music in 1933. Remember, in 1917, they had the Bolshevik Revolution, where the Bolshevik Jews abducted the Tsar, killed his family, took over the country, and proceeded to kill 100 million other good people. So is written in documents, admitted 25 million in a popular Jewish newspaper in Russia, destroying the Christian churches but not the Jewish temples. Zionist Judaism is equal to communism. We're all being deceived. The publication announced we should not verge one single iota from a program of progressive class struggle. So they have no intentions of stopping, making everybody believe you got to hate the Republicans, or the Republicans have to hate the Democrats. It's all a big smokescreen. It's all a big deception. When the game is over, we will all have lost, and they will have won. They'll have all these high technologies. They'll be able to kill anybody at will. Turn them off. They'll be forced microchipped of people. Those chips can turn us off. Just like they can turn your car off right now. They know where you are if you bought any kind of newer vehicle. Your cell phone, they know where we are. They can listen to us and see us with our TVs. None of that sounds benevolent, does it? We can be successful in our efforts only if we know how to transplant our political slogans into the sphere of music. Did you see those pictures of Miley Cyrus and Wrecking Ball and her on stage, and some of the decadent pictures of her and other musicians and activities going on? We should prove that our only right road for artistic creations, which include also that of musicians, is the service to the objections of the proletarian revolution. So even in the Encyclopaedia Judaica, it says that the Jews have been historically attracted to creating and controlling revolutions. We know that the banksters over the years, the Jewish Illuminati types, secret societies, make tons of money off these wars. See, whatever happens if they explode a nuclear weapon in some harbor in Europe or the United States and declare that we have to go worldwide martial law, all these huge corporations and other elites will be given blank checks by the governments, and the people will be the ones who are the enemies who need to be policed and controlled. But it'll have been these very elites who have detonated the nuclear war, or let loose some plague, or crash the financial system, whatever they do, or bring about Project Bluebeam and say that some aliens are coming and we all have to unite to fight them. Hans Eisler, one of the founders of the International Music Bureau, frankly admitted, communist music becomes heavy artillery in the battle for communism. And we all know some of the record labels have satanic symbols, and if you play some of the songs backwards, it has satanic words. It's all occult. On November 18, 1945, the National Council of American-Soviet Friendship held an American-Soviet cultural conference at the Engineering Society's building in New York City. Scores of communists and their followers attended, together with other interested in revolutionary leftist cultural activities. Less than 6 months later, an Arts as a Weapon Symposium was held in New York City on April 15, 1946. That would be the year that the UN recognized the small little piece of land in Palestine as the state of Israel, which now has grown to almost the whole state of Israel, all of the Palestinians' land, in 1946. I'm just saying, there were things happening back then on all fronts. Communism is Zionism. This is part of the Kabbalistic secret societies who worship Lucifer and are into Satanism, witchcraft and sorcery, pedophilia, child and other human sacrifices. It's all biblical. And we better wake up, so it seems. It was headlined by the Communist Party chief William Foster, Howard Fast and Dalton Trumbo, Anrod Eso, and Elizabeth Collett. Wow, this would be the Arts as a Weapon Symposium. It was decided at this time that the cultural section of the revolutionary field was to be rebuilt, that art was to become a weapon. Only a few months earlier, Moscow had purged its cultural fronts of the so-called weaklings. So you know what it means when they purge people. It's also called neutralize. Anyways, they were all murdered. Who had permitted the vibrations of world unity for victory to dull their drums for revolution. So people who don't support this new world order, just like in the Women's March and other things that have happened since President Donald Trump was elected, they have big protesters with signs, Donald Trump, don't build that wall between the United States and Mexico. We're all global citizens. The people don't even know it, but they've been duped. It says it here. I got many more books. 600 books probably. I've only gone over 119 different books. I've read a couple hundred. I've got hundreds more to read. I don't know if I'm going to have enough time. In July 1946, a Cultural Front Congress was held in Moscow. Remember, this is when the Bolshevik Jews controlled Moscow. Norman Corwin, American writer and radio commentator, was the honored guest. I suspect that these evil forces control Russia today. Of course, I believe that they planned and put Donald Trump as president intentionally also. It's all been one little game played for the rest of us for our amusement. We were deceived and beguiled. We were hoping that Obama would bring about change 8 years ago, 9 years ago. And then when we voted for Donald Trump over Hillary Clinton, we were hoping for change. Draining the swamp, so he said. And so far, it looks like he is not doing that whatsoever. He's already bombed Syria, quite an interesting bombing, 59 well-known types of missiles, and then also one huge bomb in Afghanistan recently. They call it the biggest bomb ever or something. A monster of bombs. Anyways, says here Norman Corwin, American writer and radio commentator, was honored guest. The 1946 Cultural Front Congress. He presented the Moscow International Convention with 2 recordings from the American Soviet Music Society, on which were reproduced special messages from the Red leaders, communist, in the United States to the Soviet heads. 1946. In this same year, the communists established a number of recording companies here in the United States. Oh my. Aimed not only at proletizing our culture, but also seeking to make a generation of our youth mentally ill. This program will be examined in detail in this work. All right, just a little more to read on this preface of this book I just got in the mail, published in 1974, talking about the Zionist, communist, and other secret societies bent on destroying Christianity and taking over the world. People have known, and they've gone through lots of efforts to distract us, to keep the general population ignorant of this stuff. Sidney Finkelstein, the cultural spokesman for the communist conspiracy in the United States, in his book, How Music Expresses Ideas, made Lenin's rework culture speech the heart of his work. Wow. So Lenin was the focus of his work. Finkelstein called for the breaking down of the barrier between classical music and popular music. He termed the barrier chauvinistic and proposed to smash it by inundating the American public with the music of Negro people. That's what it says here. Sometimes things are just so crazy I have to show you. This was the guy's plan. Inundating the American public with the music of Negro people. One can be sure Mr. Finkelstein was not referring to Negro spiritualist, but rather to African beat music. His proposed method of eliminating the barrier seems to be quite successful, since American is presently submerged in jungle beats and noises. So in my town where I live, city, the downtown square, the park, will have all the people sitting on the stones with their drums, and everybody will be there. It's a main attraction. Lots of things going on. People don't know why they're going on. Even Times Magazine article on rock and roll more than substantiated Finkelstein's fondest dreams. Finkelstein concludes, works will come forth which will inspire American people in their collective struggle for peaceful progress, express their solidarity with all other struggling peoples, and be a historic contribution to world culture. I'm thinking. It would be nice if people would collectively get together for peaceful progress, express their solidarity with all the struggling peoples, and be a historic contribution to world culture. Well, I'm saying it's all a deception and lies. Because people aren't doing anything about all the mass murder and mayhem in the Middle East. About Jade Helm 15, all the troops and equipment all over the United States. Inside job, 911, everybody knows it. And so much more. Like George Bush Sr. said, out of chaos and anarchy will come the New World Order. And they're trying to bring about this chaos and anarchy. Alright, I'll try to finish reading this little preface. Only a little bit more here. And now Jerry Rubin, in his modern day Communist Manifesto, Do It, admits rock and roll was marked the beginning of the revolution. So rock and roll marked the beginning of the revolution. He says, we see sex, rock and roll, and dope, drugs, as part of a communist plot to take over America. And concludes, we've combined youth, music, sex, drugs, and rebellion with treason, and that's a combination hard to beat. Perhaps this is why Alfred G. Honowitz commented, if the establishment knew what today's popular music really is saying, not what the words are saying, but what the music itself is saying, then they wouldn't just turn thumbs down on it, they'd ban it. And I'm saying now, if the world knew why they're doing TV programming, Seinfeld, 2.5 Men, Modern Family, all the propaganda for gay marriage, pansexualism, transgenderism, and so much more. If people knew the end game, as George Bush Sr. once said, if the people knew what we were doing in Washington, they'd come down that main road with pitchforks and ropes and string us all up. George Bush Sr. said that. Look it up. So people would do if they knew the Hunger Games movie theme was the intended result of this revolution. I've gone over the books. One in particular. I highly encourage people to go look it up. You can get a copy, PDF form online, free. The Ultimate World Order. So this retired FBI agent type, Robert H. Williams, who after he retired, he started his own newsletter, and he was an investigator. He knew a lot of inside stuff, as we would expect from somebody who was in security in America in the military, right? Probably a decent man, Robert H. Williams. The Ultimate World Order, as pictured in the Jewish Utopia. So this would have been series number 67, and that would have been, this was 67 part 3. So I made 3 2-hour videos on this book. So anyways, Robert Williams discovered in a Texas library a book. show you a picture of the cover. This is important. He found a book in a Texas library. A book not anybody could just walk off the shelf and pull it off and read it. You had to know about the book and get permission to read the book. Probably for rabbis only. But the book is called The Jewish Utopia. Professor Higger, Michael Higger, Ph.D. I found out later on, some people refer to him as a rabbi. So anyways, I did make the 3 2-hour videos, series number 67.3. And of course, a lot of people are aware of the Protocols of Zion. Again, I got these free online. See, I made videos on these. I believe this is series number 8, and I'll be making more videos. I'll read one little thing from the Protocol of Zion and get back to the preface. Political freedom is an idea, but not a fact. This idea one must know how to apply whenever it appears necessary with this bait of an idea to attract the masses. So they're attracting the masses with these baits of ideas of the people to one's party for the purpose of crushing another. So they want the Democrats to hate the Republicans. They want the Republicans to hate the Democrats. Not knowing the puppet masters, these aristocrats, these Zionists, these secret societies, Illuminati types, have an ultimate aim for world control. For the purpose of crushing another who is in authority. This task is rendered easier if the opponent has himself been infected with the idea of freedom, so-called liberalism, and for the sake of an idea is willing to yield some of his power. So they're doing all this craziness, terrorism and everything else, sustainability, biodiversity, global warming, global cooling, economic disorder, terrorism and everything else, so that we all give up our freedoms and let them gain power, and they're doing it. And one of those recent manipulations apparently was getting Donald Trump as President of the United States, giving us 2, in my opinion, crazy choices. What does this guy who owns all these casinos all over the world, preying on old people, going there gambling their Social Security checks and stuff like that, and other people's casinos? This is a guy making all this money with real estate development and casinos. And he winds up being the guy who says he's going to drain the swamp and clean up the government. You think he's got any ghosts in his closets? Things they can use to ruin him if he doesn't do what they say? You think? Anyways, my opinion. And luckily for me, in the United States of America, we're still operating under the Constitution, I think. And the First Amendment of free speech is still the law of the land, I think. Let me finish this preface on this: using music and on arts and culture to destroy the American youth in our country. 1974, written by a smarter guy than me. Perhaps this is why Alfred G. Honorowitz commented, "If the establishment knew what today's popular music really is saying, not what the words are saying, but what the music itself is saying, then they wouldn't just thumbs down on it, they'd ban it. They'd smash all the records. They'd arrest anyone who tried to play it." Or again, while American radio kept busy trying to keep its turntable clean of records that dealt with sex and drugs, American songwriters were busy outwitting the censors with lyrics that had double, triple, and sometimes multiple meanings. Of course, that one by the Beatles, "Hey Jude, let me get under your skin." Heroin, maybe? How many people now when it comes on the radio, "Hey Jude"? And so many more songs. Even, forget the people's names sometimes. America's new generation was creating its own culture. And as part of that culture, it was creating its own music and its own language. Remember who was behind all this and who had the money and the power and the purpose and the reason. The communists. Who were the communists? The Bolshevik Jewish people. Who are these? These are the Zionist Jewish people who want to take over the world. They do their business. They do war by deception. And I'll be reading more about that. That's how they perform war. They never are up front as an army marching towards us. They get people to fight each other. They control the finances. This study is concerned with both the cultural and the psychological, i.e., the communist use of music capable of producing a generation of neurotic and emotionally unstable youth. I was watching one video today. What's his name? One famous person. Took notes here. Mr. William Engdahl, Engdahl, probably not saying it right, but you can look him up. William Engdahl.com. It's a geopolitical author who wrote several books. And what he says is the most embarrassing thing about the United States was that when you go over to Russia and lots of places in Europe, people in a lot of places are seriously intelligent. They're intellectuals. He said, but here in the United States, it's dismal. It's embarrassing. They've really dumbed down America. The people have no idea. Anyways, the video was Trump following Kissinger playbook. That's the name of the video on YouTube. The date was April 13th. And Joyce Riley, Daniel Brigman, and the show is called The Power Hour. So I'm continuing to research every day, all day, videos, books, print out, download, press releases. And nothing seems to be changing my thinking about the path we're on. It seems to be continued to be supporting, and it seems like they're increasing the momentum towards our destruction. These oligarchs think they own and control the world. And I wrote my own notes, the Illuminati, secret societies, Satanists, Zionists, and they all work together to get Trump in. 2008 financial crisis was a big move for destruction of the economy in the United States, where they gave themselves billions of dollars. And they took control over our country because they were too big to fall. And also 9/11 got the people to consent to the complete destruction of all the countries in the Middle East and all those things they called Arab Spring. So I took notes when I was watching that video today. Not trying to jump around, but let me read this last sentence in this book. Just saying, the amount of proof of what I'm talking about is endless. The study is in part unbelievable, and then so is E equals MC squared. And since knowledge is irreducible requirement for intellectual action, the following material is offered with the sincere prayer that those concerned will take the proper action to assure a free republic based on Christian concepts and constitutional concepts. So whoever wrote this book in 1974 was seriously concerned about what they're doing to America's peoples. And they want to continue to keep us as a Christian country and a constitutional concepts. And of course, a lot of people will now say that have been mind controlled, in my opinion, that the Constitution is a living document. It's not. We don't want that. We want globalization. The people have been duped, deceived, and beguiled. So anyways, I'll just show you this, some of the chapter names. You can pause your computer and look at it. I'll just look at a couple of them. The Power of the Ballad, Prince of Rock and Folk, Eve of Destruction, Spiritual Implications, Operation Alert, Internal Revenue Service, Jesus Christ Superstar, Hair, Coming Great Day, Rock, Drugs, and Communism. So what if all this was an intentional plan? Communist Use of Mind Warfare, Chapter 1. Power of Music for Good or Evil. Communist Use of Hypnotism. Communist Infiltration. So I read books. I report. Finish up with my last bit of information on this essay on Zionism in the United States. If you've been watching this video and the last one, this is part 4. So then you can watch 4 2-hour videos. 8 hours. If you don't get it, you might not get it ever. Another impact of Israel has been the use of the Hebrew language in contrast to the decline of Yiddish. Hebrew songs and Israel folk dances have become American Jewish popular culture. At weddings, bar mitzvahs, and on many college campuses. Jewish art, which traditionally concentrated on East European themes, expanded to include Israel's symbols. Israeli crafts find a wide market among American Jews. Fiction on Israel life increases rapidly, and extensively periodical literature is directed from Israeli institutions towards American Jewry. So at the same time, while they were promoting the hippie movement and the festivals and drugs and music culture to all of us, all we Gentiles, non-Jews, also called Goy and Goyim cattle, they were having a different program, and they didn't really want the Jewish young people going to college with the non-Jewish people. And they were being mind-controlled and programmed towards this Zionist program. Israel had a profound impact on the ideologies of American Jews. The anti-Zionist American Council for Judaism was the only American Jewish organization which claimed that any suggestions of an ethnic bond among Jews, especially the ideas of Zionism, and the creation of the State of Israel, harmed the position of the Jews in America because it placed in question their loyalty to the United States. So they had to kind of cover this over. They didn't want to know that these Jewish people were pro-Israel, whether they had a country or not. They were all united. And they did not, the leaders did not want them to assimilate. And these are facts. This is documented, well documented. With the progress of the State of Israel, and particularly after the Six-Day War, many of its members and supporters shifted to a more pro-Israel stance, and the council's influence dwindled considerably. Agutei Israel, on the other hand, which before the establishment of the state, held that any state not governed by Hilakah, It's one of the religious philosophies, would be illegitimate, accepted the state of Israel, as did almost all the other Orthodox Jewish groups in America. So at one point, all of the Orthodox Jewish groups in America, apparently they're saying there was a unanimous consent among Jews worldwide on this state of Israel, Zionism. Jewish religious and welfare institutions in America, such as the National Council of Jewish Women, B'nai B'rith, and other Jewish war veterans, as well as civic organizations such as the Anti-Defamation League, the National Communal Relations Advisory Council, all adopted an official stand of non-Zionism. In practice, however, they support the state of Israel and demands for an American policy on friendship towards Israel. So these wealthy people controlling our banks, controlling our politicians, were promoting an American policy of friendship towards Israel. Because remember, they could threaten to shut down the American money supply anytime they wanted. They controlled our banks. They needed all these wars and all these terror events to keep the rest of us in line and distracted. Just remember that. That's the past. Today forward will be more of the same, unless we wake up. As a consequence, they reject the suggestion that Jewish ethnic traditions about Zionism and the existence of the State of Israel create conflicts of dual loyalty. So these people say that they reject the idea that there's a dual loyalty issue. Religious and ideological issues. There are, however, issues of concern to some of these organizations. Orthodox Jewry in America feels itself intimately involved in the course of religious affairs in Israel and presses the state to pursue official religious policies in accord with its own religious beliefs. Similarly, Israel rabbis command influence and respect among similar circles in the United States. The conservative and reform movement, on the other hand, are concerned that the legal establishment of religious orthodoxy in Israel involved discrimination against non-Orthodox Jews there. So just like Christians here in the United States, you've got people who are sincerely religious and try to live a religious life, calling themselves Christian. And you got other Christians that really, they don't go to church, they believe in God. They're just not so serious. And of course you have a lot of Americans who maybe whose parents were Christians, but they've decided they don't want to belong to any religion, call themselves atheists or secular or whatever. And I think a lot of that has to do with the intentional programming of people in our society, even since grade school, as we have just read about in these documents, in these books. It's all censored, it's all controlled. Some demanded the separation of state and religion, or the adoption of forms of religious practice closer to their own points of view. The concern of the American religious groups implies that the religious forms practiced in Israel are of direct relevance to American Jews. We're almost winding down here. One other paragraph. The World Zionist Organization, whereas the Israelis wanted Jerusalem to be the center of all the Zionist activities. So just think about that. It's days after President Donald Trump was elected. It was in the newspapers that apparently he was approving of, and an event was taking place of moving the USA Embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. Like I said, everything is in forward motion to bring about this new age and new world order, this Jewish utopia, this Zionist movement, this Hunger Games movie reality. So it seems. There's a comment section below on this video. If you think I'm completely wrong and all these books are just fabrications, let me know. If you think I'm right and you have more information, like a lot of people who do inform me in the comments of other concerning issues related to this, I appreciate it. I go look it up, as you've seen some of the material that you commenters post on my videos. I've made videos about it or included it in my videos. In addition, there was a great controversy about the meaning of the diaspora, that would be Jews dispersed all over the world, and the obligation to immigrate to Israel. The obligation to immigrate to Israel. The Americans claimed that America was not the gulat because Jews were secure and not oppressed there, and that the Zionist organization should not submit to the authority of Israel. Abbott Silver, American Zionists, wanted to be recognized as the liaison for all activities between American Jews and Israel. So these people are united, or the leadership is trying to make sure that they're united. That's not a question. They demanded that through legislation. So these Jewish congresses, no matter what country they're in, these are their laws, their legislation, no matter what nation they live in. They demanded that through legislation, Israel recognize their leading positions in fundraising and practical work. A demand politically achieved in 1952 through the passage of the Zionist Organization and Jewish Agency Law in the Kisnet, and a covenant signed subsequently between the Israeli government and the Jewish agencies. So all these powerful Jewish influences here in the United States and the world are at work doing a work and approved by the Israeli Kisnet Congress. So who is their loyalty to? The USA, Germany, Austria, England, or is it to Israel? And are they working on the inside, exploiting powerful positions and control of money and organizations to bring everybody else down in this Jewish utopia? American Zionists maintained that the most important issue for the Jews was their survival as a people. That's what it says here. I suppose I better show it to you. Somebody's going to say, Rick, you're making it up. You heard it here. You saw it. Americans Zionists maintain that the most important issue for the Jews was their survival as a people. Since Jews will continue to live in the diaspora throughout the world, not in Israel, only a Zionist that recognized the essential ethnical elements of the Jewish people could keep them from cultural disintegration. So they did not want cultural assimilation. They did not want a cultural disintegration or an integration with the rest of us, assimilation. For this reason, a strong emphasis on cultural continuity, Hebrew, and a strong bond with Israel are the task of American Zionism. They don't want their kids going to school with our kids. They don't want the Jewish men or women marrying non-Jewish men or women. There is an intentional separation and a cultural distinction created. Interestingly enough, for the rest of us, it's all as world citizens and submitting to sustainability, biodiversity, global warming, global cooling, terrorism, economic threats, and all that. World citizens. But these people have to continue to maintain a separate cultural identity. That's what it says here. I'm reading it. Encyclopaedia Judaica. Although since 1967, the furtherance of Aliyah in the U.S., Aliyah, the Jews moving to Israel, also became a legitimate part of the Zionist activity in America. So everything I've been saying that's intentional is written right here. Aliyah immigrating from this country. They even formed banking institutions and organizations to help people liquidate their assets so they could move. They had companies that took care of that for them. In essence, this is a Neo-Ahad Ha'am position, which sees Israel as the cultural center for the Jewish people, but simultaneously dependent on a moral, political, and financial assistance of the diaspora. So I said that before. There is a financial assistance program for people, these Jewish people, all over the world. And they could help them buy up our banks, our financial institutions, movie theaters, printing companies, newspapers, etc., etc., mining organizations, agricultural farming. Do you suppose all that's good for the rest of us? Thank you for watching my video, Rick Miracle reporting.